Okay. Uh, Welcome to the In Conversation with series of the Global Academy of Law, Tech, Education and Research. This is the first inaugural interview with a very distinguished legal scholar known all around the world for his academic writings and administrative skills. We have with us Honorable Vice Chancellor of SRM University, Sonipat, and the former Vice Chancellor of uh, NLU uh, Punjab, Rajiv Gandhi National Law University, Punjab, and also the former Vice Chancellor of Raipur, NLU Raipur, and a very distinguished writer on subjects like environmental law and other topics. Sir, I welcome you, Professor Paramjit S. Jaswal. It is indeed
Thank
a
you so
great
much, sir.
pleasure to have the dialogue with you on the platform of GALTER, the Global Academy. And I am also thankful to you for accepting my request and spare out of your busy schedule to be with us. Sonali is conducting this interview series, part one, and I request Sonali to please introduce her formally so that we can start the dialogue.
Thank you very much, sir.
A very good evening to one and all, especially sir, Professor Paramjit Jaswal sir, who has been an eminent scholar when we talk about legal arena and legal academics. He has been at the top notch. He has been the vice chancellor of two national law universities, which is itself a big thing to be proud of. And further, as far as sir is concerned, it would be for giving some or telling something about him would be, showing the lamp to the sun. So I won't be taking much of his time. Thank you so much, sir, for being a part of this Galter lecture series, and thank you so much for being there and for being an inspirational source of information for all of us. Thank you, sir. I think we can go ahead with us with the interview session
Absolutely.
now. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Uh, okay, Sonali. Now, sir, as you know, today we have the World Environment Day, 5th June, and on this day, we are launching this series in conversation with, which will be a fortnightly series. And you being the authority on the environmental law and practices, may I just know something from you? Uh, my first question is, what do you think are the major causes or reasons for constantly degrading environmental and ecosystem?
At the very outset, let me thank Professor Bhandari ji for taking this initiative on a wonderful day, Environment Day, when we are celebrating, because this is a major concern for all of us today around the globe. Coming to your question, what are the major causes as far as the environmental pollution is concerned? See, there are various reasons, but I would straight away in one line to begin with say the destruction of environment is either due to some action or inaction on the part of human beings, where our actions are on the wrong directions, or where we are supposed to take actions and we do not take the action that result the environmental destruction. But this is just a general statement. But what has happened since the last century, there has been tremendous growth and expansion around the globe. Industrialization, urbanization, population explosion, poverty, poverty in certain parts of the globe or in certain countries, over exploitation of the natural and non renewable resources, and depletion of traditional resources of energy and raw material, and the search for the new sources of energy and raw material are the basic causes for the environmental pollution. What has happened? That the mankind, with the quest to develop and progress, has exploited the natural resources to a limited extent. We have used the renewable energy, but not to the extent we are supposed to do. And without caring for the environment, we have gone for the development. And that is the reason that right from when we move from particularly Stockholm Conference onwards in 1972 to the present era, we have shifted our emphasis not only from environmental pollution but also on the sustainable development. So that is the main cause and main reason why environmental pollution is there. When we make attempt to grow, whether, let me take example, we have to have roads. We cut the forest like anything. We have to make airports. We destroy the natural flora and fauna. We make dams. Now, all these are essential, but we do not replicate the damage which is done to the environment simultaneously, which result imbalance between the different components of the environment, resulting into the environmental pollution. There is another reason. Some of the particularly Western countries, some of the countries, particularly the Western countries, they are technologically well advanced. They use their technology for the purpose of the growth, and ultimately they result into pumping into the environment or the atmosphere a lot of aerosols, carbon monoxide, or greenhouse gases, and that result into the depletion of ozone layer. Ultimately, that brings about the climate change. Now, when the climate change which is occurring, that is affecting large number of population who are non-contributory to the environmental damage, and therefore that is a very, very important aspect. So these are the basic reasons.
Thank you, Professor Jaswal. You have highlighted almost all the major regions which contribute in environmental disasters, and we all are experiencing the adverse impact of climate change. If we talk recent happenings in India, especially in Rajasthan, Gujarat, uh, Madhya Pradesh, the climate has suddenly changed. There are constant floods, constant heavy rains causing disruption of life, and so on. So you have very ably and very effectively outlined the major regions. Now, I would like to know that we have series of laws and environmental protection agencies and even the Green Tribunal, the special court to look into the environmental violations. What do you think? I know you have a book, very popular book on environmental law. I have read it also, and I have recommended it to my students during my teaching days. Uh, what do you think the laws and these bodies, statutory bodies, are doing or are serving the purpose, or you would suggest some major drastic changes into the existing, I would say, environmental jurisprudence or in the policy parameters which are being followed?
Thank you very much. You have asked what a very pertinent question. See, what happened till the middle of the last century, we were not so much concerned, and there were not so much of legislation with regard to the protection of environment. There were few legislation, rather let me go on record to say the first legislation in the world with regard to protection of air pollution that started from Calcutta long back when the Britishers were ruling us. That was
Oh,
the first
is it?
legislation which came.
Okay.
But specific, we had Forest Act of 1927, but they were just on the books. They were never implemented so seriously. It was the Stockholm Conference of 72, where our former Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, participated, and in which the Stockholm Declaration came, where it was
Yes.
one of the principles of Stockholm Declaration that each country should legislate at their own level to make the laws to protect the environment. And immediately then we had a Water Act in 1974, we had a Forest Act in 1980, we had the Air Act in 1981. So series of laws were enacted,
Yes.
but unfortunately, as you said, these laws were toothless laws, not very effective. That one could violate the laws, pay the small amount of penalty, and go scot free. So they were not effective. And in 1984, when the Bhopal gas tragedy occurred, thereafter our country realized that we need a specific law which deals all kinds of pollution. Like water, initially it was thought water pollution is the main pollution. Then degradation of forest was a pollution factor. Then air pollution was there. So it is only after the Bhopal tragedy we had this Environment Protection Act of 1987, which to my mind is a very good law, which has the clause under which different rules can be framed for the protection of environment, like noise pollution. Noise pollution is controlled by the noise pollution regulations enacted under this law. Waste management, plastic disposal, these are all controlled by making the rules under this act. And this act covers all kinds of pollution. And the most important aspect of this law was that it was quite a harsh law for the violators. But what happened? That in India, the environmental jurisprudence has evolved simultaneously, not by the, on the one hand, the legislature, they enacted the law, on the other hand, the judiciary became active, and they started entertaining public interest litigation from those section of the society which were very much concerned for the protection of the environment. So judiciary also contributed, and as you know, under the Constitution of India, uh, if a Supreme Court of India declares something, that is binding on all the authorities within the territory of India under
Right.
Article 141 of the Constitution of India. So therefore, number
146.
of number of laws or the direction came through the Supreme Court. For example, we had a law with regard to strict liability from Rail University Fletcher, but judiciary in 1986 laid down the absolute liability without any
Correct.
exception. So that
Yes.
that was an
Yes.
addition of the interpretation, and judiciary gave. But if we see the interpretation of many other judgments given later, one finds difference between the ratio of the judgment and the outcome of the judgment. The ratio is different and the outcome is different. And there has been, unfortunately, a gap between the law implementation and the goal. So that could not be bridged properly. But nonetheless, I would say India has taken a lead in evolving a new kind of a jurisprudence. And particularly at this stage, I would like to mention unique contribution of the Indian Supreme Court, that in 2013, the United Nations Environment Program had evolved a concept of rule of law into environment, what we call environmental rule of law. Now, that environmental rule of law was keeping in view the basic concept of rule of law, which talks about absence of arbitrary power, so that authorities cannot act in giving the decision in arbitrary manner. So this concept has been now ingrained by the Supreme Court into the judgments in 2019, 2020, 21. There are judgment, for example, in 2019, there was a judgment Hanumant Lakshman. In 2020, again, there was a judgment. 2021, there was a judgment from Himachal Pradesh Bus Stand Committee versus the Central Empowerment Committee. Now, they integrated the concept of rule of law into the environmental law, which is a great achievement, I would say, with regard to the evolution of law. Particularly, if I have to define today what is the environmental of rule of law, I would say it refers to the cluster of laws, regulations, and institutions that are designed to protect the environment and promote sustainable development. It is also based on the basic principle of environmental governance that should be guided by clear and enforceable legal principles, and that everyone, including government, businesses, and individual, should be accountable for their actions that impact environment. In other words, environmental rule of law, which is now ingrained into the judgments of the court, it talks about transparency, accountability, public participation, and ultimately access to justice. So these four components, these four pillars of new environmental jurisprudence have made our existing laws more stronger in India.
Thank you, Professor Jaswal. In few minutes, you have encapsulate the legal provisions and the role of Honorable Supreme Court in issuing directions after directions. And I may just add to it that in this journey of environmental protection in India, specifically when we talk, there are few individuals who have played a significant role, like Advocate M.C. Mehta, who has
Right.
obtained more than 100 orders, directions in series of cases. Now, M.C. Mehta has become an institution. Similarly, when I was in Dehradun, there is a rural litigation entitlement kendra. So they have also played a very important role in protecting the forest, which were abused by few individuals for putting up industries in prohibited zones. And they fought with the Supreme Court, and they got the necessary orders. So there are many other institutions and individuals who have contributed a lot, and we must also appreciate their role.
Absolutely.
We have 2-3 Galter members who have requested me to allow them to join, although they would not raise any questions, please, because it is a
No,
direct
they are
one-to-one
free to
talk.
ask it. They are
No,
free to ask
definitely,
it.
but then it would change perhaps the format of the program. But I'm happy that they are keen to join, and I welcome them, Professor Yugal Kishore, Prachi Mishra, and Advocate Sheetal Kumbat. Prachi, yeah, sorry, Sonali, you wanted to say something and wanted to ask. You told me about technology and environmental protection. You can please ask, because you are a
Uh,
facilitator.
with due
Yeah.
respect to sir, there is one question that I would like to ask is since right now AI, artificial intelligence, is so much into the air and everybody is talking about it's everybody is tabbed these days. So I just want to know what would have been the best contribution of AI according to you, since you are the concerned person to ask over the environmental jurisprudence. You are actually a person who is known for environmental jurisprudence into this in India. So, what can be the contribution of AI when we talk about environmental protection and environmental concern?
You,
Yeah,
Prachi,
what
you,
Yes,
can be the contribution?
Prachi, you mean artificial intelligence and not Air India, correct?
Oh, yes, sir. Artificial intelligence, obviously, sir.
But on a lighter side. Yeah, please,
uh, thank you
please,
for this question, Prachi. To
Sonali.
So,
my
Sonali.
mind, Sonali, sorry, Sonali, to my mind, uh, the artificial intelligence is the future. And we are already seeing the role of artificial intelligence in the development of different kinds of technologies. One of the basic things which we are employing today in environment protection is that whenever any developmental project is undertaken, before that project is executed, we must make environmental impact assessment. And we should anticipate that what is the environmental harm going to be there, and then on a sustainable pattern we take a decision whether to go ahead with that kind of a project or not, and how we can mitigate the consequences of that. Now this is we apply the scientific principles as well as non-scientific principles, and we make environmental impact assessment. The history is a witness to it. Many a times our environmental impact assessment has gone wrong. The use of artificial intelligence will be very much relevant in making environmental impact assessment before any developmental project is taken, whether that project will be sustainable or not. So I think the developing technique and technology are going to be part and parcel of our sustainable development in the future. It is very much essential, it is very much relevant, and it will be very much helpful in the future.
thank you,
Thank you so
Professor
much,
Jaswal.
sir.
Thank you. You have raised a very important question, and I think Professor Jaswal, in brief, has responded on a very important aspect of impact assessment, wherein the technology such as AI, even blockchain, they can be employed to find out the exact collateral damage which could be caused or which could not be caused. So, in measurement of all those parameters, AI can have a precision and very important role. Since, sir, as you know, we are working in the domain of law and technology, and we are conducting a lot of programs. And I will discuss with you on some other occasion about our association with SRM. Now, finally, I would like to ask you one question. And before that, there is one note. I was reading the famous book written by none other than the former US Vice President Al Gore, who has been awarded Nobel Peace Prize also. And he has said in his book, The Earth in Balance, that when I am sitting in my car and running air conditioner, I forget that to get a chilled air and pleasant environment in my car or in my house, how much ozone I am releasing outside the my home premises, and that is one of the major reason for ozone layer damage, ozone hole, as we call it. So, and then he finally says, and I would like to quote and take your opinion, that in nature there is neither reward nor punishment. There is a consequence. So whatever we reap, we will get that. And you have in the beginning very rightly said that we have to look into a sustainable approach and have to create a balance between development, which is also necessary, and intergenerational equity, what we will leave for our posterity. Now, in this connection, sir, I would like to know from you, for our generation, especially our young generation, What is your message on this auspicious World Environmental Day? What you would like to tell to the global community, especially our young community? Because now the future belongs to them. Please.
See, I believe that first of all we should be thankful to Almighty God that God has provided us this Mother Earth, such a beautiful planet with such a balanced composition of different things, different elements. The most important message is that we should act now. We should not delay in our action. We should realize now that the damage has already been done. In fact, there is one article, since you refer to Al Gore book, I will refer to that article which was published by the Earth Commission in the famous journal Nature. In Nature, it was pointed out that, like in an Indian culture, we believe that to keep oneself within the limits, one should observe the Lakshman Rekha. Similarly, in the Nature, it was pointed out that out of eight, seven climate red lines have already been crossed. It is a very important thing for us to note today, and this what I am talking about is nothing less than a journal of the standard of a nature which has published this article, and that too by Earth Commission. 7 out of 8 climate red lines, I call these red lines as the Lakshman Rekhas,
Correct?
which have
Correct?
already been crossed by us. And if we do not take action to prevent further damage or to reverse them within the Lakshmana Rekha, the, the earth will collapse, the living creature will die, and the doomsday will come very soon. So, my message is that we should realize how human activities directly and indirectly are affecting the environment. We should also realize what you said, intergenerational equity. Had our forefather already exhausted all non-renewable resources, probably we could not have been able to enjoy them today. So, and we should take preventive action as a collective body partnership, because environment does not know any religious, cultural, or geographical boundaries. The impact of one country's activity falls on other country. Today Russia and Ukraine are fighting. How much ammunition is fired from both the countries? What is the fallout of that, particularly the neighboring countries in the Europe? The environment is already showing its impact. The climate is changing. Today we also have to take into consideration climate justice. Climate
Yes.
justice is
Yes.
the
I agree.
impact of environmental pollution on those individuals who are non contributory to the environmental destruction.
Correct.
If a climate is changed, if there is an unseasonal rain or is a delay of rain, those pockets of habitants who are living near the river or the seashore, how they are affected ultimately, that is very important. So the day is not far off. There is hardly any time. We thank God for giving this beautiful nature to us. We have to, the one line punchline of today's message would be, nurture the nature to save the future.
Very. Thank you, Professor Jaswal, for uh, responding to all our queries and questions. And really, we all have learned a lot. And I think this interview will be has already been recorded. It will be edited by our backend team, and I will share with you the copy of it. Uh, Finally, since we have our senior member, Professor Yugal Kishore, please unmute yourself to just propose in brief, because time is already, sir has to conduct another meeting, and we also have another meeting, as you know. So please convey vote of thanks in just 2 minutes so that we can
Okay,
conclude
thank you.
this first
Thank you very
meeting.
much, Professor Bhandari Sahab. I think I'm audible. Am I
Yes, you are
audible?
Yes,
audible.
sir.
Please
Okay.
thank to Professor
Thank you very much,
Jaswal.
sir.
Yeah.
Sir, yeah. It has been very nice for me to hear the today's message of on the Environmental Day to save the environment by Honorable Professor P.S. Jaswal Sahab, whose book not only me, my all the students have followed. I was there at NLU Assam. So, and today also here, I am at present at KIT. So my students are following. My students are following. So I'm very much grateful to our Professor P.S. Jaswal Sahab that he has spared his valuable time and given such a wonderful message to the all the persons to whole of the world that we have to nurture the environment and save the environment on this day. And I'm very much thankful to Professor Bhandari Sahab also that he has organized this program. And today, is a very auspicious day wherein we must pledge ourselves that we'll work for the for the coming generations so that we will not spoil the natural resources so that the coming generation can also survive in a proper way. So thank you very much, sir, and all
Thank
the
you.
participants. I thank them. I understand that today, being environmental day, many persons are busy otherwise, but those who have been capable of sparing the time, I thank all of them. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very
Thank you,
much for
Professor
this
Yugal
particular
Kishore.
program.
On
Thank you,
behalf
sir.
of, on my personal behalf, on behalf of all the attendees who are here, and on behalf of the Galter team, we are a big team of 75 persons across the world. And soon we will have you also on our board. I will send a separate request. So I thank on behalf of Galter and on my personal behalf to my very dear friend and a country's leading educational administrator, I would say, already has run 3 universities successfully. Thank you for joining us. With this, we conclude this meeting. Namaskar. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you.
Namaskar.